What's going on, everybody? Kalipis Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you some tips and tricks for the TCL Stylus 5G that you might not know about. Now before we go any further, I do want to remind you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and if you want to learn more about this phone, be sure to check out my full review and other tips and tricks videos for it on the channel. But with that being said, let's get started. So the first thing I want to show you is a feature called adaptive brightness. Now essentially, this is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. The adaptive brightness feature is going to adjust the brightness of your display based on your environment. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, it's going to brighten up to be easier to see. But if you're in a darker room, then it's going to dim the display to save battery and make it a little bit easier on your eyes. So to get to this feature, we're going to go to settings. From here, go to display. Now in the display menu, adaptive brightness is right here, toggle it on. And as you can see, the display is automatically dimming, but then if we were to go in a brighter room, it would brighten back up again. The next thing I'm going to show you is a feature called 3-finger screenshot. Now in case you don't know already, taking a screenshot with this phone is pretty easy to begin with. All you got to do is press the power key and the volume down key at the same time, and just press the buttons. You don't need to hold them. So like this. And there we go. Toolbar is going to show up. It doesn't last for very long. You can share, delete, whatever you want to do. And that's pretty much it. But with the 3-finger screenshot, we got another option to take a screenshot, and who doesn't like having multiple different ways to do something? Now this feature is enabled by default, so you don't actually need to do anything to activate it. All you need to do is put 3 fingers on the screen and swipe down. So like this. And there we go, that's pretty much it. And again, this feature is enabled by default, but in case for whatever reason it's not working on your phone, or if you want to disable it, what you're going to do is go to settings. From here, go to buttons and gestures. From this menu, go to gestures. And as you can see here, again, 3-finger screenshot is enabled by default, but if you want to turn it off, you have that option too. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to change the appearance of your battery percentage on the status bar. So right here, this is the default setting. Battery is in the top right corner, and as you can see, the battery percentage is inside the icon. Now I personally really like this. I think it looks really cool and pretty clean, giving you the battery percentage while also not taking up too much space on the status bar. Definitely more efficient than a lot of other phones, but we also got some other options. So to get to these, we're going to go to settings. From here, go to Smart Manager. And from this menu, go to battery. Go to battery detail. And battery percentage is right here. So as you can see, again, by default, the battery percentage will show inside the battery icon, but you can also have it next to the battery icon, so that's like pretty much every other phone, or if you want, you can completely hide it. The next thing I'm going to show you is a quick way to open your camera. Now simply using the camera app on your home screen is easy enough, but if you're doing something else on your phone, like maybe you're playing Angry Birds for example, and you want to quickly capture something in the moment, then it's kind of inconvenient to have to close out of whatever you're doing, but luckily with this phone we do have a shortcut. So to open your camera, all you got to do is double press your power key like this, and the camera is going to open right up. So again, no matter what you're doing on your phone, whether you're on your home screen using an app or maybe your display is locked, no matter what you're doing, if you want to quickly and conveniently open your camera, again, all you need to do is double press your power key. And keep in mind, this feature is enabled by default, so you won't need to do anything in your settings before using it. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to use one-handed mode. This feature is basically going to shrink down your display to a smaller size to make it a little easier to use with one hand. So let's take a look at how to do it. First things first, we're going to go to settings. From here, go to advanced features. And from this menu, go to one-handed mode. So as you can see, there are 2 different ways to activate it. The first one is pretty straightforward. What you're going to do is pull down the shade twice, scroll to the second page, and one-handed mode is right here. Tap on the button. And as you can see, this is what one-handed mode looks like. Essentially, it's basically just a mini display. A lot easier to use with one hand. You can also switch the side. And then to get out of one-handed mode, tap anywhere outside the display, so like this. And we're back to normal. Now if we go back to that menu, there are actually a few other options here. So as you can see, there's an option to activate one-handed mode using a gesture. So if you go like this, you're going to get right back into it. You can also change the size here. So by default, it's going to be 3.5 inches. You can also do 4 inch, 4.5 inches, or you can completely customize it. Now I'm going to show you some additional settings for the lock screen. So we're going to go to settings. From here, go to home screen and lock screen. And now in the lock screen section, we got a few different things we can change. The first thing here is the overall lock screen style. By default, it's going to be the TCL style, which I personally think is really cool. So I'm going to show you that right now. As you can see, this is the typical TCL style lock screen. So on pretty much any TCL phone, this is what it's going to look like by default. You can also change it to classic, and this is going to be more of a traditional Android look. Under this, you can turn notifications on the lock screen on and off, so some people might not want them to show up, but by default, it will show everything. You can also add lock screen shortcuts, so as you can see, I do have mine on. So if we go here, you can change the left shortcut. So right now, I do have the dial pad. I'm going to change it to Google. Right shortcut is camera, so now if we go back to the lock screen, as you can see, we got the Google and the camera right here. But then if you want to turn these off, you always can. So let's see what that looks like. There we go. You can also add a lock screen message, definitely a cool feature. Wake screen for notifications. By default, this is off, but you can always turn it on. And then finally, we have pocket mode, and this is going to prevent you from accidentally calling someone or something like that. Now, of course, today in 2022, pocket dialing and stuff like that is not nearly as much of an issue as it was back in the day when we actually had buttons on our phones. But at the same time, it still does happen. So if you really want to make sure it doesn't happen, then pocket mode is definitely a nice feature. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to use the power button to end a call. So by default, when you're on a call, it doesn't do this, but we can enable it. So to do this, we're going to go to settings. From here, go to buttons and gestures. Go to power key. And right here, again, by default, this is going to be off, but you can toggle it on. And now whenever you're on a call, all you have to do to end it is simply hit the power key and the call is going to end. Now we're going to take a look at some color settings for the display. First things first, let's go to settings. And from the main settings menu, we're going to go to Next Vision. So as you can see, we got some things that are on by default. Image enhancement, video enhancement, game enhancement. These are all going to make the details on your display a little bit sharper and more vivid. So if you're watching videos, looking at photos, or maybe playing a game or something like that, things are going to look a lot better. Now keep in mind, these do use up a little bit more battery power. So of course, if you're really focused on saving battery, you can always turn them off. Under this, we got a few different modes. So reading mode, eye comfort mode, darker display mode, sunlight display mode, which is on by default. So definitely some interesting features. And then from here, we can go to color mode and temperature. By default, it's going to be set to vivid, which is basically going to enhance all the colors on your display. I personally like to keep it like this, but if you want it to look a little bit more natural, you can change it to natural. And then from here, you can also go to advanced to really customize it. Now the last thing I'm going to show you is how to make a screen recording. So to make a screen recording, pull down your shade twice. From this menu, scroll to the next page, and screen recorder is right here. Tap this. This is going to be a countdown. And now as you can see, we are recording, and it's pretty much going to do this indefinitely until you hit the stop right here. And once you stop, it's saved right to your photos. So as you can see, while it's in sort of a weird spot, it's definitely a real easy feature to use. And now one final thing, there are some options we can change here. So if we go back to the screen recorder icon, press and hold, and now we get a few different settings here. First of all, by default, it is going to record these videos in 1080p, but you can also do 720p or 480p. Now, personally, for screen recordings, I feel like you should just leave this alone because first of all, 1080p is the resolution of the display anyway. And second of all, even if you record in 720p or 480p, it's really not going to save that much space because screen recordings in general usually aren't very big files. But that being said, this is up to you, and it's always nice to have some options. You can also change the sound. So if you go here, by default, it's going to record your mic. You can also mute it entirely, or you can record the system sound. So if you're recording a video, or maybe a snippet of a song or something like that, in that case, be sure to set it to system, otherwise it's not going to record it. And then finally, by default, it will record touch interactions. So when you touch the screen, it's going to show a little cursor thing. But if you don't want it to do that, you can always turn this off. But those were my tips and tricks for the TCL Stylus 5G. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you found these tips and tricks useful as well. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. And again, if you want to learn more about the phone itself, be sure to check out my full review of it on the channel. But that's it for this video. As always, I will see you in the next one.